Lord, give me strength. Some days, I swear, the world has just plain lost its mind. It was one of those perfect Atlanta afternoons in early May. You know the kind I'm talking about. The air's so thick with the smell of honeysuckle you could practically chew on it. The sun warm enough to soothe the arthritis in my knuckles, but not so hot it makes you sweat through your good linen blouse. I was settled on my porch swing, the chains giving a gentle, rhythmic squeak, with a steaming cup of Twinings Earl Grey in my favorite porcelain cup. My late husband Robert, bless his soul, had bought me the whole set for our 25th anniversary. The man knew his way to my heart was through good tea and a balanced checkbook. I was trying, for the third time that week, to get through a new biography. Peace and quiet. That's all I ask for these days. It's not much. But my quiet was about to be shattered, and not by the usual culprit. See, my son Tom's wife Carol pulled her little Honda into my driveway. I could tell something was wrong before she even got out of the car. She didn't just park, she sort of abandoned the vehicle at a slightly crooked angle. When she came up the porch steps, she was twisting the strap of her leather purse so hard I thought it might snap. Her face was pale, her eyes all wide and watery. She looked like a startled fawn. "Carol, honey, you look like you've seen a ghost. Sit down. You want some tea?" She just shook her head, chewing on her lower lip. Carol is a sweet girl. A little too quiet for my taste sometimes, but hard-working. She's a junior financial analyst at First Atlanta Bank, the company my Robert helped build from the ground up, and the one that Tom is now president of. She's diligent, smart as a whip with numbers, reminds me of myself back in my accounting days. But she doesn't have a confrontational bone in her body. She finally sank into the wicker chair opposite me, the chair groaning in protest. "Helen," she started, her voice barely a whisper. It's about work." I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea. "All right. It's about Veronica Sterling." A muscle in my jaw tightened. Veronica Sterling. The name alone was enough to curdle milk. She's the vice president of marketing over at the bank. I'd never met the woman face to face, but I felt like I knew her intimately. Why? Because 3, sometimes 4 times a week, her voice would come booming through my living room window from the direction of the main office building down the road. The woman conducted her business calls with her window wide open, apparently, and had the lung capacity of an opera singer and the subtlety of a jackhammer. She had a voice like a foghorn in a Chanel suit, braying about leveraging assets and synergizing brand initiatives. All that corporate snake oil nonsense. It was incredibly rude, and it always interrupted my reading. "The foghorn?" I asked, my voice drier than a saltine cracker. "What about her?" Carol took a shaky breath. She went to Tom. She demanded he fire me. I set my teacup down on the saucer with a sharp clink. The sound cut through the peaceful afternoon air. I stared at my daughter-in-law, this gentle soul who organized the church potluck and cried during commercials for animal shelters. I waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly, my old accountant brain kicking in, trying to make the columns add up. "Veronica Sterling, a senior vice president, wants my son, the president of the bank, to fire his own wife from a completely different department? For what exactly? Did you embezzle funds? Set fire to the break room microwave? What in God's name could you have possibly done?" Carol's eyes welled up. A single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. She said I intimidate her. I just sat there. The porch swing stopped moving. The birds stopped chirping. The entire world seemed to hold its breath at the sheer, unadulterated absurdity of that statement. Intimidate her? Honey, a gentle breeze could intimidate some people if it messed up their hair, but this was a whole new level of foolishness. Carol? Intimidating? The girl apologizes to furniture when she bumps into it. It made no sense. It was like saying a kitten was terrorizing a full-grown grizzly. A vice president, a woman with a corner office and a salary that could probably pay off my mortgage twice, a woman whose voice carried across 3 city blocks, threatened by a junior analyst who barely speaks above a whisper? Something was wrong with this picture. Terribly, fundamentally wrong. And my mind started racing, trying to figure out what the hell was really going on. Why would a woman with that much power feel threatened by someone with none?
Bullshit. That was my first, second, and third thought. Pure, unadulterated, grade A bullshit. My mind was whirring, trying to make sense of the nonsense. At first, I figured, all right, this is just some high-level catfight. You know the type. Back in my day, we had them too. Someone didn't like the way you filed a report. Someone thought you got too much credit for the quarterly audit. It was usually solved with a tense potluck in the break room and a few weeks of the silent treatment. Annoying, but manageable. Honey, are you sure you didn't just look at her the wrong way? I asked, trying to find a rational explanation. Any port in a storm of foolishness. Sometimes these executive types are wound tighter than a grandfather clock. Carol shook her head, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. The gesture was so childlike, it made my heart ache. It's not just one thing, Helen. It's been everything. For months. She took a shaky breath, the kind you take when you're trying not to fall completely apart. She talks over me in meetings, but only when when Mark isn't in the room. She'll ask for a file, and when I send it, she'll claim it never arrived. Last week, a huge project I'd spent a month on was mysteriously corrupted on the server right before the presentation. I had to stay up for 2 straight nights redoing it from my notes. My grip tightened on my glass of iced tea, the condensation cold against my knuckles. This wasn't a catfight. This was a campaign, a deliberate, calculated, slow-motion assassination of my daughter-in-law's career and confidence. This Veronica Sterling wasn't just a difficult boss. She was a snake in the grass. A well-dressed one, I was sure, but a snake nonetheless. And the things she says, Carol whispered, looking down at her lap. She makes comments, little digs, about how convenient it must be to be married to the president. She told me once, right to my face with this sickly sweet smile, that I should be careful not to do anything that might embarrass Mark or jeopardize his position. That did it. The polite, retired grandmother facade cracked right down the middle. Screw that. You don't threaten my family. You don't come after one of my own with veiled threats and corporate sabotage. I was about to tell Carol to march into that bank tomorrow and raise holy hell when a voice, sharp and loud as a car alarm, sliced through the afternoon quiet. No, I don't care what the projections say. You move the assets now. Now. Both Carol and I flinched. We looked towards the street, and there she was. The devil, apparently, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my last Social Security check. Veronica Sterling, pacing on the public sidewalk, but so close to my azalea bushes I could see the vein throbbing in her temple. She was a fixture in the neighborhood, this one. Lived a few blocks down in one of those new glass and steel monstrosities. And she had this infuriating habit of taking all her important calls while stomping past my house, her iPhone glued to her ear. I'd always found it tacky, a complete lack of respect for anyone else's peace and quiet. She turned, her back to us, still barking into the phone. It's under the subsidiary restructuring line item, just like we discussed. It's clean. No one looks twice at those internal transfers, especially not to the Cayman accounts. Just get it done before the quarterly review. It was all just corporate noise to me, the kind of jargon I'd spent 40 years listening to. Meant nothing. What meant something was the sheer arrogance, the way she owned the air around her. She clicked her heels on the pavement, a sound like angry punctuation marks. Carol had shrunk back in her wicker chair, trying to make herself invisible. Seeing my daughter-in-law, a wonderful, kind woman, physically recoil from the sound of this woman's voice Well, it lit a fire in my belly that had been dormant for a long, long time. Veronica finished her call with a sharp "fine" and snapped her phone shut. For a split second, her eyes swept over my porch. She didn't see Carol, who was half hidden by a fern, but she saw me. And she gave me this look. Not a smile, not a nod. It was a look of complete and utter dismissal, like I was a garden gnome or a piece of lawn furniture. Then she turned and marched off, her posture radiating a kind of venomous triumph. I watched her go, the rage simmering in my chest. This wasn't about intimidation. This wasn't about Carol bumping into furniture or speaking too softly. A woman who screams about Cayman accounts on a public street isn't intimidated by a kitten. No, this was about something else entirely. This woman was playing a much bigger, much dirtier game. And for some reason, my sweet, unassuming daughter-in-law was standing in her way. The question was, for the love of God, what was Veronica's endgame?
Lord have mercy. I tell you what, watching that woman sashay away, radiating pure, unadulterated evil, well, it just wouldn't sit right with me. My gut was churning like a washing machine full of rocks. Intimidation, bullshit. This Veronica was after something, and I intended to find out what it was. The next morning, bright and early, after my Earl Grey, 2 sugars, mind you, my arthritis aches something fierce these days, I went to work. Not to First Atlanta, heaven forbid. I was long retired from that nonsense. No, I went to work on Veronica. 40 years as a senior accountant, honey, teaches you a thing or two. It teaches you how numbers whisper secrets, how discrepancies scream bloody murder. It teaches you how to follow a paper trail, even when that trail is buried under layers of corporate gobbledygook. So, I started with Carol. Sweet girl, bless her heart. She was so flustered, she barely remembered the projects she and Veronica had been working on together. Seemed Veronica kept her in the dark most of the time, vaguely alluding to sensitive client data and confidential initiatives. That raised my eyebrows higher than a Pentecostal choir on a Sunday morning. I spent the next few days subtly, and I mean subtly, fishing for information. I'd call Carol and ask her about her day, casually slipping in questions about Veronica. "Oh, sweetie, how's that new project coming along? The one Veronica's heading up?" I made it sound like I was just being a concerned mother-in-law, but inside, I was a bloodhound on the scent. The problem was, Carol didn't know much. Veronica kept her on a need-to-know basis, and apparently, Carol didn't need to know squat. So I decided to go old school. Back in my day, we didn't have fancy computer programs and instant access to everything. We used our brains, our instincts, and a whole lot of elbow grease. Remember checkbooks? Well, I still keep mine, and I still balance it religiously. You never know when those young bucks at the bank will try to pull a fast one on a fixed income. I started thinking about Veronica's scream in the street and those Cayman accounts. It sounded like a bad spy movie. But what if? I remembered Veronica mentioning something about client reimbursements and expense reports during one of Carol's vague descriptions of their projects. Now, in my experience, reimbursements and expenses are often where the little devils hide. It's easy to bury small sums, to fudge the numbers just a little, especially when you're dealing with large accounts and nobody's paying close attention. So I started digging. I knew a few folks who still worked at First Atlanta, people I'd mentored over the years. They owed me a favor or two. I called in one of those favors. I asked my source, a lovely woman named Martha, to pull up some anonymized data on recent client reimbursements and expense reports. I didn't want anything specific, just a general overview, a bird's eye view of the financial landscape. Martha, bless her heart, came through for me. A few days later, she discreetly slipped me a flash drive with the information. It was a jumble of numbers and codes, completely meaningless to the untrained eye.
but to me, it was a treasure map. I spent the next week poring over that data, hunched over my dining room table, my reading glasses perched on my nose. It was like being back in the trenches, auditing ledgers and chasing down pennies. The phantom factor headache came back to haunt me, but I wouldn't be deterred. And then I saw it. A pattern. Small, seemingly insignificant sums, $47.50 here, $112.83 there, being transferred from First Atlanta accounts to, wait for it, offshore accounts. Specifically, accounts in the Cayman Islands. Veronica's rant rang in my ears. Now, I'm not saying every transaction to the Cayman Islands is illegal. But when you see a pattern of small, irregular transfers disguised as client reimbursements and expense reports, well, that's usually a sign that someone's playing fast and loose with the company's money. Embezzlement, plain and simple. The amounts were small, almost laughably so, but over time, they added up. I estimated, conservatively, that Veronica had siphoned off at least $20,000 in the last 6 months. $20,000! And she was probably planning on taking a whole lot more. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about being rude to my daughter-in-law. This wasn't even about intimidation. This was about theft. This woman was stealing from First Atlanta, and she was using Carol, my sweet, unsuspecting Carol, as a cover. The nerve of her. My hands were shaking. I needed to tell someone. I needed to alert the authorities. But I also needed proof. Cold, hard, undeniable proof. And that, sweetie, was going to be a whole lot harder to come by. Could I find enough evidence to expose Veronica before she bled First Atlanta dry?
Lord have mercy, I muttered to myself, clutching my purse tighter. I needed to tread carefully. Rushing in like a bull in a china shop wouldn't get me anywhere. I needed information, and I needed it without raising any red flags. So the next day, bright and early, I put on my best concerned customer face and drove down to the First Atlanta branch, the one Veronica worked at. Now, I'd always handled my finances online. Figured I was too old to learn Zelle and all that jazz, but I thought this was the perfect time to visit the branch. The air inside smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old money. You know the smell, right? Like a doctor's office mixed with your grandma's attic. I approached the first teller I saw, a young buck barely old enough to drink, and smiled sweetly. "Good morning, dear," I chirped, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm having a bit of trouble with my account, and I was hoping someone could help me." He perked up, probably thinking he was about to land a big fish. "Of course, ma'am. What seems to be the problem?" "Well, sweetie," I said, batting my eyelashes, "I've been noticing some unusual activity, and I just want to make sure everything's on the up and up. This whole computer business scares me half to death. Back in my day, we had checkbooks, and that was that." He chuckled, a condescending little sound that made my teeth itch. "I understand, ma'am. Let's take a look. What's your account number?" I gave him the number, and while he was tapping away at the keyboard, I casually steered the conversation towards Veronica. "You know, I think I saw a lovely young woman named Veronica working here the other day. She was so helpful on the phone. Is she still around?" He glanced up, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Veronica is one of our best employees. Very dedicated." "Oh, really?" I said, feigning surprise. "That's wonderful to hear. I was just so impressed by her. She seemed so efficient." He nodded, a little too eagerly, I thought. "Absolutely. Veronica knows her stuff." I continued my little charade with the teller for a few more minutes, just to make it seem like I was genuinely concerned about my account.
But my real purpose was to glean any information I could about Veronica. I asked a few more pointed questions, disguised as innocent inquiries, about her work ethic and her interactions with other employees. The teller didn't give much away, but I picked up on a few things. She was exceptionally charming, he said, able to smooth over even the most difficult customers. Persuasive, that's the word he used. But I also detected a hint of fear, or maybe it was just respect. Whatever it was clear that Veronica held a certain sway over the people at First Atlanta. After my little chat with the teller, I wandered over to the customer service desk, pretending to need help with a new online banking password. There, I spoke to another employee, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a weary smile. Veronica. Oh, yes, I know Veronica. She's ambitious. Very good at what she does, but, well, let's just say she doesn't suffer fools gladly. Oh, I said, raising an eyebrow. And what do you mean by that? The woman hesitated, glancing around nervously. Well, she's very focused on her career, and she doesn't let anything get in her way. Some people might find her intimidating? Intimidating. Just like Carol said. But this time, it wasn't coming from a jealous daughter-in-law. This was coming from someone who worked alongside her every day. Before I left, I casually asked about safety deposit boxes. Just a random thought. I wanted to see if Veronica had access to them. The woman at the desk confirmed that she did, as part of her duties as a senior account manager. And then she mentioned something that made my stomach drop. Actually, she said, Veronica accessed one of the rarely used boxes just last week, box number 312. I remember because it was such an unusual request. We hardly ever get anyone asking for those old boxes anymore. Box number 312. My mind raced. Why would Veronica, a woman seemingly content to skim small amounts from various accounts, suddenly need to access a safety deposit box? What was she hiding? Was it connected to the embezzlement? My hands were shaking again. I needed to know what was in that box. What could be so important that she would risk everything to keep it hidden? What's in the safety deposit box?
Lord, give me strength. I swear, sometimes I think I should have just stayed retired and taken up competitive bridge. Less stressful, honey, and probably better for my blood pressure. But no, I had to be the hero, didn't I? So there I was, sitting in my sunroom, the one with the floral wallpaper I picked out back in '88. Don't judge, it was all the rage then. Sipping my Earl Grey, Twinings, naturally, none of that Lipton nonsense, and trying to wrap my head around this safety deposit box business. Box 312. It just didn't sit right. Veronica, so meticulous, so focused on the small cons, suddenly needing a hidden vault? It smelled like trouble, sweetie, the kind that could land my Tom in jail. And I wasn't about to let that happen. I needed a plan. A clever one. Something that would make Veronica crack without alerting her. I'm too old for cloak and dagger stuff. My arthritis acts up in damp weather, Sneaking around at night like some teenager was out of the question. That's when it hit me. Carol! My sweet, bless her heart, slightly jealous daughter-in-law. She might actually be useful for once. She knew Veronica well enough to know her buttons. And let's be honest, Carol wouldn't mind seeing Veronica taken down a peg or two. A little harmless mischief never hurt anyone, right? I picked up my landline. Yes, I still have one. I'm not giving up my rotary dial just yet. And dialed Carol's number. Carol, honey, how are you? I asked, trying to sound casual.
like I wasn't about to enlist her in a potentially illegal sting operation. I'm fine, Helen. Just dealing with the kids. Tommy's got a science fair project due next week, and little Susie is convinced she's a ballerina now. The glitter, Helen, the glitter is everywhere. I chuckled. Sounds like you're busy. Listen, sweetie, I need a little favor. Something subtle. Something delicate. I explained the situation to her, carefully omitting the part about Veronica's embezzlement. No need to scare her unnecessarily. I just told her that I suspected Veronica was up to something that could hurt Tom's career. So, what do you want me to do? She asked, her voice laced with a hint of excitement. I want you to plant a seed, Carol. A little rumor. Nothing concrete, just a whisper in Veronica's ear. I want you to let her know that Tom is being considered for a big promotion. A promotion? Really? Carol sounded surprised. Tom hasn't said anything about that. He doesn't know, I said smoothly. It's all hush-hush. The partners are still deciding, but I have my sources, you know. I didn't, of course. I was making the whole thing up, but Carol didn't need to know that. Okay, she said slowly. I can do that. But what will that accomplish? I want to see how Veronica reacts. If she's plotting something, this might just push her to make a move. I need to see her cards, Carol, before it's too late. And what if Tom does get the promotion? She asked, a touch of concern in her voice. Then good for him! He deserves it, I said, sincerely. But right now, I need to know what Veronica is really after. Is she truly after Tom's best interests, or is she just using him as a stepping stone? Carol agreed to do it. She's always been a good girl deep down. A little gossipy maybe, but with a good heart. I knew she wouldn't intentionally hurt Tom. The next few days were agonizing. I tried to keep myself busy. I had my weekly mahjong game at the community center. Damn, Agnes and her tile-hogging ways. I volunteered at the local library, shelving books. My back paid for that later, let me tell you. And I even attempted to learn how to use Zelle on my iPhone. That last one was a disaster. I nearly sent my entire Social Security check to some Nigerian prince. All the while, I was waiting for Carol to call, waiting for Veronica to take the bait, waiting to see what was in that damn safety deposit box. Finally, on Thursday afternoon, as I was battling a particularly nasty game of solitaire on my computer, the sound effects are far too loud. I wish I could turn them off. My phone rang. It was Carol. Helen? She said, her voice breathless. I did it! I told Veronica about the promotion. And? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. What did she say? Well, she hesitated. She seemed surprised, but then she got this look in her eye, like she was calculating something. Calculating what? I pressed. I don't know, Helen, but it wasn't a good look. It was cold, like she was figuring out how to use this to her advantage. Damn it. So Veronica was hiding something. The promotion, the potential bump in Tom's career, it was all a trigger. It was pushing her to act. Okay, Carol, I said, my voice firm. Thank you. You did good. Now we wait and see what she does next. But what would she do next? What was so important that she was willing to risk everything? Will Veronica take the bait?
Lord have mercy. So, there I was, sitting on my porch swing, lemonade sweating in the glass, pretending to admire my petunias. Truth be told, those petunias were looking a little peaked. Probably needed more of that miracle grow stuff. But I had a far more pressing gardening task at hand, planting my iPhone.
You heard me right, darling. Planting. I'd nestled it inside a terracotta pot right behind a vibrant red geranium, microphone facing outwards. It was recording, you see, recording everything. Carol's little bombshell about the promotion had worked like a charm. Veronica was about to show her true colors, and I, honey, was going to be front and center for the performance. I didn't have to wait long. I saw Tom's beat-up Camry pull into the driveway. He looked tired, bless his heart, probably from dealing with all the office nonsense and Veronica's simmering moods. He hadn't even made it to the front door before she was out there, blocking his path like a linebacker protecting the quarterback. "Tom, we need to talk," she said, her voice sharper than my best paring knife. I could practically smell the hostility radiating from her all the way to the porch. Tom sighed. I could see his shoulders slump. "Can it wait, Veronica? I had a hell of a day." "No, it can't wait. This is about your future, our future." She lowered her voice, but it still carried. "I heard about the promotion." There it was. The bait was taken. I took a slow sip of my lemonade, my fingers crossed behind my back. "What about it?" Tom asked, sounding genuinely confused. "It's just a possibility, Veronica. Nothing set in stone." "Don't play dumb with me, Tom. Carol told me everything about how they're considering you for the head of the department." And, Veronica hissed, "it's not fair. I've been at that company longer than you. I deserve that promotion." "But Veronica, you're in a completely different department. It's not even the same line of work." Tom was starting to sound exasperated. "That doesn't matter. I'm more than capable. I just need the opportunity." She paused, then her voice took on a dangerous edge. "And quite frankly, Tom, you haven't exactly been helping. In fact, you've been undermining me." "Undermining you? How?" Tom sounded genuinely bewildered. "By being so damn likable. Everyone loves you, Tom. You're the golden boy. They see you as some fresh-faced genius, and they completely overlook my hard work and dedication. It's not fair, Tom." I could feel my blood pressure rising. "Sweetie, you couldn't undermine a dandelion, let alone someone as capable as my Tom." Look, Veronica," Tom said, trying to reason with her. "I don't want to fight about this. Let's just talk calmly." "Calmly?" she practically shrieked. "How can I be calm when my entire career is on the line, when some young buck is trying to steal my thunder?" "I'm not trying to steal anything, Veronica." "Yes, you are, and so is Carol. She's feeding you information, isn't she? Playing you like a puppet? She's trying to position you for that promotion so she can take credit for it." Here it comes. I could feel it in my bones. "She needs to go, Tom. She's a liability. She's creating unnecessary competition." "You can't be serious," Tom said, his voice rising in disbelief. "You want me to get Carol fired because you feel threatened?" "Yes, that's exactly what I want. She makes me uncomfortable. She's always hovering around you, batting her eyelashes. It's inappropriate, and frankly, it's insulting." Oh, the nerve of this woman! I wanted to march right out there and give her a piece of my mind, but I had to stay put. I had to get it all on record. She wasn't finished. "And frankly, Tom, your mother isn't helping matters either." My ears perked up. Now she was talking about me. This was getting personal. "What does my mother have to do with any of this?" Tom asked, his voice dangerously low.
She's always interfering, always meddling in our lives. She thinks she knows best about everything. Honestly, Tom, she's getting old. She's starting to lose it. Half the time, I don't think she even knows what's going on. She probably encouraged Carol to do this. That was it. The line had been crossed. My hands were shaking with fury, but I forced myself to stay calm, to stay silent. She wasn't finished. And frankly, Tom, maybe it's time she considered moving into a retirement home, somewhere with, people her own age, people who understand her dementia. Dementia? Dementia? Oh, she did not just go there. I clenched my fists so tight, my knuckles turned white. This harpy was going to pay. Tom was silent for a long moment. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. He was a good man, my Tom, a decent man, but he was also fiercely loyal to his family. And right now, his family was under attack. "You know what, Veronica?" Tom finally said, his voice dangerously calm. "I think you're right. Something needs to change." My heart leapt. Was he finally seeing the light? Was he finally going to stand up to her? "I think," he continued, "that we need to seriously reconsider our marriage, because I am not okay with you talking about my mother that way. And I sure as hell am not okay with you demanding I fire one of my colleagues to further your own ambitions." Veronica gasped. You're choosing her over me?" "No, Veronica," Tom said, his voice hard. "I'm choosing myself and my family, and I'm finally seeing you for who you really are." I stopped the recording. My hands were still shaking, but now it was with a sense of grim satisfaction. I had it all, every single word. Her petty jealousy, her cruel insults, her blatant manipulation. It was all there, captured for posterity. But would it be enough? Would this recording be enough to expose Veronica for the toxic person she really was? Or would she find a way to weasel out of this mess, leaving my Tom heartbroken and my family in tatters?
Well, crap. I thought I had her. I really did. That recording, sweetie, was dynamite. I could practically taste the victory, like a perfectly brewed cup of Earl Grey on a chilly morning. So, naturally, I called my lawyer, bless her heart. Brenda's a sharp one, a real go-getter. She comes highly recommended by my youngest, bless his heart, the one who works in IT. I met her downtown in that fancy office building with the revolving doors and the overly enthusiastic receptionist. You know the type. I played the recording for Brenda, expecting her to practically leap out of her chair, ready to slap Veronica with a restraining order and a lawsuit. Instead, she listened patiently, tapping a manicured nail on her desk. She even poured me a glass of that fancy bottled water they always have. Fiji, I think it was. Looked too good to drink, if you ask me. When it was over, she sighed. A long, drawn-out sigh that made my stomach clench. "Helen," she said, leaning back in her leather chair, "this is compelling. It certainly paints a picture of a very unpleasant woman." Unpleasant? Unpleasant was finding a hair in your soup at the Cracker Barrel. This was a woman systematically dismantling my family. "But," she continued, holding up a perfectly manicured hand to stop my sputtering, "it's circumstantial. It's hearsay. It's opinion. It doesn't prove anything concrete." I stared at her, dumbfounded. Concrete? Sweetie, she's on tape demanding my son fire his own wife. Isn't that enough? Brenda shook her head sadly. "Not in a court of law, Helen. Not without more. We need evidence of wrongdoing. Preferably financial wrongdoing. Something we can really sink our teeth into." "Financial wrongdoing?"
Where was I supposed to find that? I wasn't an accountant anymore. I was a 72-year-old widow who spent her days tending to her garden and arguing with the automated voice on my phone when I tried to pay my bills online. I hadn't balanced a ledger since before Tom retired, God rest his soul. Think, Helen, Brenda urged, her voice softening slightly. Think about anything Veronica might have said, anything she might have done that seemed off. Anything at all that suggests she's not on the up and up. I racked my brain, trying to remember every conversation, every interaction, every fleeting expression on Veronica's face. She was always so careful, so polished, so perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Then something clicked. I remembered a conversation I'd overheard a few weeks back between Veronica and Tom. They were in the kitchen whispering, and I was in the living room pretending to watch Jeopardy! Alex Trebek, bless his soul, is truly missed. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but their voices carried. They were talking about a discrepancy in the company accounts. Veronica had said something about moving funds around and reclassifying expenses. Tom had sounded worried, asking if it was legal. Veronica brushed him off, saying it was just creative accounting and that everyone did it. She mentioned something about reclassifying expenses, I told Brenda, my voice trembling with renewed hope, and moving funds around. It sounded shady. Brenda's eyes lit up. That's it. That's what we need to focus on. Can you remember any more details? Any names, dates, amounts? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to conjure up the exact words, the specific details. All I could remember was the feeling of unease, the sense that something was deeply wrong. No, I admitted, defeated. I don't remember specifics, but I know it had something to do with the quarterly reports. She was working late, a lot right before they were due. She said she was streamlining the process, but now I think she was cooking the books. Brenda nodded slowly. Okay, Helen, that gives us a starting point. We need to find those quarterly reports. We need to get our hands on her financial records. We need proof. But how? Veronica had complete control over the company's finances. She had access to everything. Tom, bless his trusting heart, had given her the keys to the kingdom, and now she was using them to bleed him dry. I thought about confronting Tom, telling him what I suspected, but he was already reeling from the recording. I didn't want to burden him with more bad news, not without solid evidence. Besides, Veronica would just deny everything, and he'd be caught in the middle. I don't know how to do that, Brenda, I said, my voice laced with frustration. I'm just an old lady. I don't know anything about corporate finance or computer hacking or whatever it takes to uncover this kind of thing. Brenda smiled, a knowing smile. Don't underestimate yourself, Helen. You're smarter and tougher than you think. And you have something Veronica doesn't, a fierce love for your family. That's a powerful weapon. She paused, tapping her pen on the desk. We need to find someone who can access those records, someone who can discreetly gather the evidence we need, someone on the inside. Someone on the inside. That meant someone at Tom's company, someone who knew Veronica, someone who had access to her files, someone who was willing to risk their job to help us. Honey, I'm telling you, I felt my arthritis flare up something fierce just thinking about it. The mere prospect was a headache in the making. But thinking about Veronica getting away with all of this, that was a pain I couldn't bear. But who? Who could I trust? Who would be willing to help me expose Veronica's lies and save my family from her clutches? Damn that woman. How in the world was I supposed to get the proof I needed? Well, bless her heart, I muttered to myself, more than a little exasperated. Finding someone at Tom's company, it felt like searching for a needle in a haystack filled with, well, needles. But then a thought flickered, a memory.
First Atlanta, I said aloud, the name tasting like bitter almonds on my tongue. You see, before Tom landed his fancy pants job downtown, he'd started out at First Atlanta, a little local bank. And Veronica, the conniving little minx, had started there too. That's where they met, back when she was pretending to be all sweetness and light. I still banked at First Atlanta. Old habits die hard, especially when you're used to friendly tellers who know your name and haven't tried to sell you some ridiculous cryptocurrency scheme. Plus, my safety deposit box was there, holding things I didn't trust to keep at the house. Sentimental things, mostly. A few pieces of jewelry my dear departed Harold had given me, and other things. Things that might be useful. So the next morning, I called Veronica. "Sweetie," I purred, my voice dripping with false affection, "I have something of Harold's I think you should have. A little memento. Meet me at First Atlanta at noon?" I could practically hear her salivating on the other end of the line, thinking she was finally gonna get her claws on something of value. Bless her heart, she's so predictable. I arrived early, naturally. Made a beeline for Mrs. Henderson, the branch manager. We go way back, Mrs. Henderson and I. She helped me sort things out after Harold passed. A good woman. "Mrs. Henderson, dear," I said, leaning in conspiratorially, "I need to use one of the private rooms. You know, for important business. And I need complete privacy. No interruptions, no matter what." Mrs. Henderson, bless her soul, just smiled knowingly. She'd seen enough drama in that little bank to fill a soap opera. She escorted me to a small, windowless room with a table and a couple of chairs. 30 minutes, Helen," she said, winking. "Then I'll need it back." I settled in, smoothing down my skirt. I had dressed for the occasion, I'll tell you. My best navy blue suit, the one I wore to Harold's funeral. It meant business. I opened my purse, pulled out my iPad, and made sure the volume was turned up. Then I waited. Right on the dot of noon, Veronica sashayed in, all stilettos and designer handbag. That one smelled like money. Or rather like other people's money. "Helen," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "it's so good to see you. What did you want to give me? I hope it's not too depressing." "Oh, it's depressing, all right, sweetie, but not for you." I gestured for her to sit. She perched on the edge of the chair, all nervous energy. "Before I give you anything, Veronica," I said, "I want to show you something." I tapped the screen of my iPad and hit play. The room filled with the sound of Veronica's own voice, bragging to Brenda about how she was embezzling money from Tom's company, how she was covering her tracks, how she was manipulating everyone. I watched her face as the recording played. The initial shock, the dawning horror, the desperate attempts to regain control. It was like watching a viper slowly realize it had been cornered. When the recording ended, silence hung heavy in the air. Veronica's face was white as a sheet. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. "Well, Veronica," I said, my voice low and dangerous, "I think you and I both know what needs to happen now. You're going to resign from your job immediately. You're going to confess everything to Tom, and you're going to give back every single penny you stole. Every single penny." I leaned forward, my eyes boring into hers. "If you don't, sweetie, I promise you, I will personally make sure that recording gets into the hands of the police, the IRS, and every single news outlet in Atlanta. Your little scheme will be front page news. You'll be ruined. Is that clear?" I thought she'd crumble, burst into tears, beg for mercy. Instead, she started to laugh, a high-pitched, hysterical laugh that echoed in the small room. "Why is Veronica laughing?"
Lord have mercy, that laugh. It was like fingernails on a chalkboard. That's what it was. Just grating, echoing off the walls of my little sunroom. Finally, she stopped, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face. But not tears of remorse, honey. Oh no. Tears of triumph?
You think you're so clever, Helen? She wheezed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara. You think you've got me cornered with your little recording?
I frowned.
What are you talking about? I do have you cornered. That was your voice, plain as day. She shook her head, a smug little smile playing on her lips. Oh, Helen, Helen, Helen. You really thought this would be that easy? Did you really think a woman as careful as me wouldn't consider the possibility of being recorded? My stomach did a little flip-flop. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. I had the entire office swept for listening devices weeks ago, sweetie. Top to bottom. Cost me a pretty penny, but worth every cent. She reached into her purse, a fancy little Gucci thing that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, and pulled out a small metallic device. This little baby finds everything, even those fancy digital recorders you can hide in a pen. I stared at her dumbfounded. How could I have been so stupid, so arrogant? I'd been so focused on catching her red-handed, I hadn't even considered the possibility that she'd be one step ahead. But the recording, she chuckled. Oh, that was a little something I cooked up myself. A few carefully chosen words, some clever editing. You'd be surprised what you can do with today's technology, Helen. Even an old dog like me can learn new tricks. My mind raced. How? Who helped her? This was too sophisticated for her. She barely knew how to use Zelle, for crying out loud. Who helped you? I demanded, my voice trembling slightly. She just smiled that infuriating smile. Let's just say I have resources. People who are willing to help me achieve my goals. People who understand that sometimes you have to play dirty to win. She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. You see, Helen, I knew you were suspicious. I knew you were snooping around. That's why I decided to turn the tables. I decided to use your own little game against you. She reached into her purse again, this time pulling out a thick, official-looking document. She held it out to me, her smile widening. Take a look, Helen. Tell me what you see. I reluctantly took the paper from her trembling hand. It was a deed to my house on Peachtree Lane, the house Tom grew up in, the house I'd lived in for over 40 years. I scanned the document, my eyes blurring with disbelief. It was a transfer of ownership from Helen Parker to Veronica Davies. What is this? I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. It's a deed, Helen, a deed of transfer. It says that you, of your own free will, have decided to gift your house to me. Gift? This is a forgery. This is insane. Is it, Helen? Is it really? Look closely, sweetie. See that signature? Looks an awful lot like yours, doesn't it? And that notary stamp? Perfectly legitimate. I made sure of it. I stared at the signature. It did look like mine. Close enough that any handwriting expert would have a tough time proving it was a fake. And the notary stamp? Damn it all! I remember seeing someone at the Piggly Wiggly advertising notary services a few weeks back. I thought nothing of it. Just another one of those pesky flyers stuck to the bulletin board. You forged my signature? You bribed a notary? I couldn't even finish the sentence. The audacity. Back in my day, people had respect for the law. This young whippersnapper was just waltzing all over it. She shrugged, feigning innocence. Prove it, Helen. Go ahead. Try to prove that this document is a fake. See how far you get. You think a little old lady like you can take on someone like me? Someone who knows how the system works? She stood up, smoothing down her dress.
I think it's time for me to go, Helen. I have a house to move into after all. A lovely house in a very desirable neighborhood. I'm sure I'll be very happy there." She walked towards the door, then paused, turning back to face me with a triumphant smirk. "Oh, Helen, one more thing. I almost forgot." She reached into her purse again and pulled out a small silver key. "I changed the locks this morning just in case you got any funny ideas." She tossed the key on the coffee table, where it landed with a soft clink. Then, with a final condescending smile, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me sitting there stunned and speechless, the forged deed clutched in my trembling hand. How in God's name was I going to get out of this mess?
"Well, butter my biscuits," I muttered to myself, staring at the door long after she'd sashayed out of it, the silver key mocking me from the coffee table. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. This girl? This Veronica? She was actually going to get away with this? The sheer gall of it all. It was beyond comprehension. Back in my day, if you pulled a stunt like this, you'd be tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail. Now they just smile and wave as they steal the roof over your head. I sat there for what felt like hours, the forged deed clutched in my hand like a lifeline. But it wasn't a lifeline, was it? It was a noose. Finally, I forced myself to move. I had to call David, my son, my sweet, well-meaning, utterly naive son. He'd been so happy that Veronica was taking care of me. Taking care of me, my foot. She was bleeding me dry. The phone felt heavy in my hand. My fingers, already stiff with arthritis, fumbled with the buttons. It rang and rang, each ring a little hammer blow to my already battered heart. Finally, he picked up. "Mom, everything okay? You sound breathless." "David, honey," my voice cracked. "We have a problem, a big problem." I told him everything, every single sordid detail, from the transfer of ownership agreement to the forged signature, to Veronica strutting out of my house with a triumphant gleam in her eyes and the damn new keys to my home. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could practically hear him processing it all. Finally, he spoke, his voice tight with anger. That bitch. I'm coming over right now, Mom. We're going to fix this." He arrived less than an hour later, his face a thundercloud. He paced the living room, running a hand through his hair, muttering about lawyers and lawsuits and how he was going to strangle Veronica with his bare hands. "Okay, Mom. First things first, we need to get a lawyer, a good one, someone who specializes in real estate fraud." Easier said than done, sweetie. Atlanta's crawling with lawyers, all promising the moon and the stars for a hefty retainer. And retainers? Well, let's just say my Social Security check doesn't exactly stretch to cover high-powered legal representation. We spent the next few days making phone calls, sending emails, and generally running ourselves ragged trying to find someone who was willing to take the case and wouldn't charge us an arm and a leg up front. Most of them just brushed us off. Difficult case, they'd say, or not enough evidence. One particularly charming fellow suggested I just cut my losses and move into a retirement home. Can you imagine? Now, the other shoe dropped. A certified letter arrived in the mail. The return address? The law offices of Stern, Feynman, and Goldblatt. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. Inside was a formal eviction notice. Veronica, through her high-powered lawyers, was suing to have me evicted from my own home. She was claiming, based on the forged transfer document, that she was the rightful owner and that I was an illegal squatter. The audacity! I actually laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh that echoed in the empty room. David was furious. He wanted to go down to Stern, Feynman, and Goldblatt and give them a piece of his mind. I had to talk him down. "That's exactly what she wants, honey," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "She wants us to lose our tempers, to make mistakes." But inside, I was crumbling.
How was I supposed to fight this? I was just a little old lady on a fixed income. She had lawyers, money, and absolutely no conscience. The legal system was a labyrinth, a maze of paperwork and procedures that I couldn't possibly navigate on my own. We finally found a lawyer, a young woman named Sarah Chen, who had just started her own practice. She was bright, energetic, and seemed genuinely outraged by Veronica's actions. She agreed to take the case, but even she admitted that it was an uphill battle. The lawsuit dragged on for months. Depositions, interrogatories, mountains of paperwork. It felt like I was drowning in legal jargon. The stress was unbearable. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and my arthritis flared up something awful. One morning I woke up with a splitting headache and a dull ache in my chest. I reached for my blood pressure monitor, the one the doctor recommended, and took a reading. It was sky high. I knew I needed to calm down, but how could I when my entire life was hanging in the balance? Sarah called me constantly with updates, most of them bad. Veronica's lawyers were ruthless. They were trying to paint me as senile, incompetent, and incapable of managing my own affairs. They even brought up that incident with the HOA over the overgrown rose bushes, that old chestnut. The worst part was the waiting, the endless, agonizing waiting for the court date. Every day felt like an eternity. Every night I lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling wondering if I would end up homeless. Could I, Helen Parker, sharp as a tack and proud as a peacock, really lose everything to this grifter? Was there any way to fight back against a system that seemed rigged against me?
Well, bless her heart, I muttered under my breath as we walked into that courtroom. The air was thick with anticipation, smelled faintly of lemon polish and old regrets. The judge, a man with a face like a clenched fist, sat perched on his elevated seat, looking down on us all. Veronica was already there, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine, a very expensive one at that. She had on a smart navy blue suit, her hair perfectly coiffed, not a strand out of place. She oozed confidence, that phony, butter wouldn't melt kind of confidence that grates on every nerve in my body. Honestly, she looked like she'd already won. Her lawyer, a slick young buck with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, caught my gaze and gave me a barely perceptible smirk. I wanted to smack him right then and there. I could smell the arrogance radiating off him like cheap cologne. The proceedings began, and it was just as Sarah had warned me. A carefully orchestrated character assassination. Veronica took the stand, all big, watery eyes and trembling voice, and painted a picture of me as some doddering old fool, barely capable of remembering my own name, let alone managing my business. "Mrs. Parker," she said, her voice dripping with false concern, "has been struggling with cognitive decline for quite some time. It's been heartbreaking to witness." Honey, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Cognitive decline? Me? I may have misplaced my reading glasses once or twice, but my mind was sharper than a tack, and I could still balance a checkbook faster than anyone half my age. I swear, the gall of that woman. Veronica's lawyer then proceeded to parade a string of expert witnesses before the court. Doctors, psychiatrists, even that busybody from the HOA, Mrs. Abernathy, all eager to testify to my supposed incompetence. Mrs. Abernathy, bless her soul, was practically drooling at the chance to air her grievances about my rose bushes again. "Mrs. Parker," she declared, puffing out her chest, "has become increasingly erratic in her behavior. Why, just last summer she accused me of poisoning her petunias. Poisoning, can you imagine?" I wanted to scream. Poisoning? I simply suggested that maybe Mrs. Abernathy should invest in some decent fertilizer instead of whatever cheap stuff she was using. Honestly, the drama of it all. It was a carefully constructed narrative designed to make me look like a crazy old woman grasping at straws. And damn it all, it was working. I watched as the judge listened intently, his brow furrowed, his expression growing increasingly sympathetic to Veronica.
He even nodded along when her lawyer brought up that incident from a few years back when I accidentally sent a birthday card to my dentist instead of my granddaughter. A simple mistake, but they were twisting it, using it as evidence of my failing mental faculties. During a brief recess, Sarah pulled me aside, her face pale with worry. "Helen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "this is bad, really bad. They're making a very strong case. The judge seems to be buying it. We need to prepare for the worst." Prepare for the worst? What did that even mean? Prepare to lose everything? Prepare to be at the mercy of that viper? Prepare to see my life's work crumble before my very eyes? I felt a cold dread creep into my bones. The courtroom seemed to spin around me, the faces of the people inside blurring into an indistinguishable mass. My chest tightened, and that familiar ache returned, sharper this time. I thought of my late husband, George, and the years we had spent building our life together, the sacrifices we had made, the dreams we had shared. Was it all going to be for nothing? Was Veronica going to waltz in and steal everything we had worked so hard for? I looked at Sarah, her young face etched with concern, and I could see the doubt in her eyes. She was trying to be strong for me, but I could tell she was losing hope. Even my own lawyer thought we were going to lose. Was this it then? Was this the end of the line for Helen Parker? Was my only option to simply surrender and let Veronica have her way? Is this the end for Helen?
Lord have mercy. I swear, I could practically taste the defeat. It was a bitter, metallic tang in my mouth, like sucking on an old penny. The judge, that young buck with the slicked back hair and the perpetually bored expression, was clearing his throat. You know the sound, the one that says, "I've made up my mind, and you're all just wasting my time." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the courtroom. I could feel my hands trembling in my lap, and I gripped them tightly, trying to regain some semblance of control. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath and thinking of George. "Don't let her win, George," I whispered under my breath. "Don't let her take what's ours." When I opened my eyes, the judge was beginning to speak. I could feel Sarah's hand on my arm, a small, reassuring pressure, but even her touch couldn't penetrate the icy fear that had settled deep in my bones. "Having considered the evidence presented before the court," he droned, his voice echoing in the cavernous room, "and taking into account the testimony of all parties involved—" Oh, honey, I knew what was coming. I'd seen enough Perry Mason in my day to know when the fat lady was about to sing. He was going to rule in Veronica's favor. He was going to say that I was no longer capable of managing my own affairs. He was going to hand over my life, my legacy, to that thing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shout, to tell them all that they were wrong, that I was still sharp, still capable, still me. But I couldn't. My voice was caught in my throat, choked by the sheer weight of the injustice. "It is the finding of this court," the judge continued, his voice gaining momentum, "that Mrs. Helen Parker, that's it, this is it, is not capable." Suddenly, a voice boomed through the courtroom. "Hold on just a darn minute!" Everyone turned, startled. Even the judge looked momentarily flustered. All eyes were on the back of the courtroom, where the bailiff was standing, looking confused. "Your Honor," the bailiff said, his voice tinged with uncertainty, "we have a request. Someone wishes to submit new evidence." "New evidence? Now? What in the blue blazes?" The judge frowned, clearly annoyed. "Who is it, and what is this evidence?" he asked, his voice sharp. Before the bailiff could answer, a familiar figure came bustling through the doors of the courtroom, his face red and perspiring. It was Jerry. Jerry, my noisy, nosy neighbor from across the street. Jerry, the one who always borrowed my hedge trimmer and returned it with half the blades missing. Jerry, who insisted on telling me every single detail of his bowel movements. Jerry! What in God's name was Jerry doing here? He was clutching a manila envelope in his hand, his knuckles white. He looked like he had run a marathon, his chest heaving and his tie askew. He was wearing that awful brown suit he always wore to church, the one that smelled faintly of mothballs and stale coffee. He waddled his way down the aisle, his steps echoing in the suddenly silent courtroom. He was beaming, like he had just won the lottery. Or, knowing Jerry, like he had finally managed to unclog his drain. "Your Honor," he said, puffing and panting as he reached the front of the room, "I have evidence, important evidence, evidence that will change everything." I stared at him, dumbfounded. What in tarnation was going on? What possible evidence could Jerry have? Did he finally figure out who had been stealing his gnomes? Did he finally find the remote control he lost in 1998? The judge looked like he was about to explode. "Mr. he began, his voice dripping with disdain. "Henderson," Jerry supplied helpfully. "Jerry Henderson, and I'm a neighbor of Mrs. Parker here. A very good neighbor, I might add." "Mr. Henderson," the judge said, his voice rising in pitch, "I must warn you that disrupting court proceedings is a serious offense. Unless you have a legitimate reason for being here, I will have you removed." "Oh, I have a legitimate reason, Your Honor," Jerry said, his eyes twinkling. "A very legitimate reason. It involves a certain transaction. A transaction that I believe sheds a great deal of light on Mrs. Veronica Sterling's motivations." He glanced at Veronica, who was now glaring at him with undisguised fury. Her face was as red as a beet, and her lips were pressed into a thin, angry line. I still had no idea what was going on, but a tiny spark of hope flickered in my chest. Could Jerry actually help me? Could this bumbling, well-meaning busybody actually save the day? He turned to me, his face suddenly serious. "Don't worry, Helen," he said, his voice surprisingly firm. "I've got your back." He turned back to the judge. "Your Honor," he said, holding out the manila envelope, "I request permission to submit this evidence. It's a copy of a check, a very interesting check." The judge sighed, clearly exasperated, but he nodded reluctantly. "Very well, Mr. Henderson. You may present your evidence, but I warn you, if this is a waste of the court's time—" Jerry beamed. "Oh, it won't be a waste of time, Your Honor. I guarantee it." He handed the envelope to the bailiff, who took it and passed it to the judge. The judge opened the envelope and pulled out a piece of paper. He scanned it quickly, his eyebrows rising in surprise. He looked at Veronica, then back at the check. His expression was unreadable. "Miss Sterling," he said, his voice suddenly cold, "do you recognize this check?" Veronica's composure was cracking. I don't know what you're talking about." "This check," his voice hard, "is made out to, well, I won't say the name here, but let's just say it's for services rendered. And the memo line reads, for assistance with Parker case." The air in the courtroom crackled with tension. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a mixture of hope and disbelief. What was on that check? What had Veronica been up to? He looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange mix of sympathy and something else. Respect? "Miss Parker," he said, his voice softer now, "are you aware of this?" I shook my head, bewildered. "No, Your Honor, I have no idea what this is about." He looked back at Veronica, his eyes narrowed. "Miss Sterling," he said, his voice like ice, "I think you have some explaining to do." Veronica opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She just stood there, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. Jerry, bless his cotton socks, was grinning from ear to ear. He winked at me. "What does Jerry have to do with this?" Lord have mercy. Jerry, bless his heart, grinning like a Cheshire cat, winking at me like we were in on some grand conspiracy. I swear, sometimes I think that man lives for drama. "Jerry," I said, trying to keep my voice down, but my curiosity was burning. "Jerry, what in the Sam Hill is going on? What do you have to do with this check?" He shuffled his feet, suddenly looking a little less cocky. "Well, Helen, sweetie," he said, his voice a little shaky, "it's a bit of a long story. And maybe I should have told you about it sooner." I just stared at him, my eyebrows raised. "Jerry, you know I don't have the patience for games. Not today. Spit it out." He took a deep breath. Okay. You remember how you were saying things just didn't seem right with Veronica? How she seemed to know too much? How things just seemed off? I nodded, remembering all those sleepless nights, the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. Of course I remember. You think I haven't been losing sleep over this whole charade? I've got my Social Security check riding on this, Jerry. "Well," he continued, "I got to thinking. You know I'm retired from IT, spent 30 years wrangling computers and networks, and I've always been pretty good at figuring things out." He puffed out his chest a little. "Back in my day, I could debug a mainframe faster than you can say arthritis." He chuckled nervously. He cleared his throat. "So I started poking around. Just looking." "Looking where, Jerry? Looking where?" I pressed, my patience wearing thin. "Well, first," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "I started by looking at her social media. The usual stuff. Facebook, Instagram, but there wasn't much there. Just pictures of fancy dinners and inspirational quotes. The woman has never posted an actual thought in her life. So I had to get creative. I fought the urge to roll my eyes. "Get to the point, Jerry. I'm about to have a coronary right here in this courtroom." He gulped. Okay. So I remembered you telling me about her home network, how she was always on her laptop, working from home, doing whatever it is she does for that company. I frowned. "Yes, what about it?" "Well, I figured if she was up to anything, it would be happening online. So I may have taken it upon myself to do a little investigating." "Investigating how, Jerry? Did you hire a private investigator? Because I'll be damned if I'm paying for that." He held up his hands in a placating gesture. No, nothing like that, Helen. I wouldn't dream of it on your fixed income. Remember that old laptop I was telling you about? The one I used to use for my ham radio hobby?" I nodded slowly, vaguely remembering something about antennas and static. "Yes. Well, I still have it, and I still know how to use it. So I drove by Veronica's house one night, parked down the street, and, well, I piggybacked onto her Wi-Fi." My jaw dropped. "Jerry, you didn't." He winced. I know, it wasn't exactly illegal, and I hope I don't get arrested for this, but honey, I had to help you. I just had a feeling something was rotten in Denmark, I did know. I'd felt it in my bones. But to think Jerry had gone to these lengths? "But how did you get the check?" I asked, still reeling. "That's the clever part, sweetie. See, once I was on her network, I installed something called a packet sniffer. It's a program that captures all the data flowing in and out of her computer. Think of it like eavesdropping on her internet connection." I stared at him blankly. "You what?" I felt like I needed a translator, not an IT specialist. He sighed. Okay. Think of it this way. Every email she sent, every website she visited, every file she downloaded, I saw it all." "And you found something?" I breathed, my heart pounding in my chest. "Oh, I found something all right," he said, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "I found a whole mess of somethings.
Emails, documents, chat logs, enough to make your hair curl. It took me weeks to sift through it all, but I finally found what I was looking for. Proof. Proof of what, Jerry? What did you find on Veronica's network? He paused for dramatic effect, looking around the courtroom as if making sure no one was listening. I found evidence that Veronica was paying someone to, well, let's just say, influence the case in her favor. That check the judge is holding? It's just one piece of the puzzle. I was speechless. But who was she paying? And how did she think she could get away with it? Jerry shook his head, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. That's what's really interesting, Helen, because the person she was paying, well, let's just say they're not exactly a stranger to this courtroom, or to you for that matter. He leaned in even closer, his voice barely a whisper. I found the emails, the bank statements, the Zelle transfers. I even found a video call she made on her iPhone where she was literally negotiating the price. It's all there, in black and white. He paused again, building the suspense. And the best part is, I know exactly what she was looking for. My mind was racing. Who could she possibly be paying? And what did it all mean? Jerry, I pleaded, stop with the suspense. Tell me, what did you find on Veronica's network?
All right, hold your horses, Jerry. My ticker can't take much more of this, I said, my voice trembling slightly. The air in that courtroom was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the suspense was a tangible thing, pressing down on us all. Jerry, bless his heart, finally relented. He walked over to a rolling cart that had been sitting discreetly in the corner, covered with a cloth. With a flourish worthy of a magician, he whipped the cloth away, revealing a large monitor hooked up to a laptop. What I found, he announced, his voice booming through the courtroom, wasn't just some back-alley deal, Helen. It was a carefully orchestrated attempt to defraud you and the court. He clicked a button on the laptop, and the screen flickered to life. The first image that appeared was a familiar one, Veronica's living room. My blood ran cold. This, Jerry said, pointing to the screen with a laser pointer, is a screenshot taken from Veronica's home computer. Notice anything off? On the screen, Veronica was sitting at her desk, bathed in the eerie glow of the monitor. She was hunched over, her brow furrowed in concentration. And on the screen in front of her was a Wells Fargo document. The very document that was at the heart of this whole mess. What you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is Veronica in the act of forging that transfer document. We were able to trace the IP address back to her home router. The timestamp matches the approximate time when the document was supposedly created. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Even Judge Thompson, who'd seen it all in his long career, looked visibly surprised. Jerry clicked again, and the screen changed. This time, it was a series of screenshots, each one showing Veronica accessing offshore accounts. He showed the IP addresses, the timestamps, the whole shebang. We subpoenaed records from her internet provider, sweetie. We even got a warrant to access her hard drive. She thought she was so clever, deleting her browsing history and using a VPN. But she forgot one thing. Every action leaves a trace. An eye, honey, and the best darn trace finder this side of the Mississippi. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Veronica was sitting at the defendant's table, her face ashen. The smugness that had been her constant companion throughout this trial was gone, replaced by a look of pure terror. Served her right, the little minx. But that's not all, Jerry continued, his voice dripping with satisfaction. We also found evidence that she was using a sophisticated image editing program to manipulate the numbers on the transfer document. Zoom in on this section here, he said,
pointing to a small area on the screen. See how the font is slightly different? That's because it was added later digitally. She thought she could pull a fast one, but she underestimated my team. I could barely breathe. It was all so clear now. Veronica had meticulously planned this whole thing, thinking she could outsmart us all. But she'd made one fatal mistake. She'd underestimated the tenacity of a scorned mother-in-law and the skills of a good lawyer. And, just for good measure, Jerry added with a sly grin, we also found some deleted files. Seems Veronica had a penchant for online poker. Lost a fair bit of money, too. Nothing illegal, mind you, but it paints a picture, doesn't it? A picture of a woman who was desperate for money. He turned to face Veronica, his eyes narrowed. So, Ms. Davis, care to explain to the court why you were forging documents and accessing offshore accounts? Or perhaps you'd like to tell us about your little poker habit? Veronica didn't say a word. She just sat there, staring blankly ahead, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before our very eyes. You know, sweetie, it was like watching a house of cards collapse. One minute it's standing tall, all impressive and shiny, and the next minute it's nothing but a pile of useless paper. Jerry walked over to Judge Thompson and handed him a flash drive. Your Honor, this contains all the evidence we presented today. I believe it clearly demonstrates that Veronica Davis has committed fraud and perjury. The judge took the flash drive and nodded gravely. Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. We'll take a short recess while the jury reviews the evidence. As the jurors filed out of the courtroom, I caught Michael's eye. He gave me a small, grateful smile. It was the first time I'd seen him smile since this whole nightmare had begun. My heart swelled with a mixture of relief and vindication. Walking out of the court, I could feel that I was walking on a cloud. My arthritis was completely gone. I didn't even need my cane. The anger I'd been holding on to for so long was finally starting to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace. But as I sat there, sipping my Earl Grey, Jerry had the foresight to bring me a thermos. I couldn't help but wonder, will Veronica face justice for what she's done?
Well, bless her heart. The jury didn't take long at all, honey. You could practically smell the tension simmering in the room. When they filed back in, faces grim, you could have cut the air with a butter knife. The foreman, a kindly-looking gentleman with a hearing aid and a Wells Fargo pen tucked behind his ear, stood up. Madam Foreman, has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Thompson asked, his voice booming. We have, Your Honor, the foreman replied, his voice steady. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant, Veronica Davis, guilty. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. I saw Veronica's lawyer, a young buck trying to make a name for himself, practically wilt in his chair. Veronica, though, she didn't flinch, just sat there, that mask of hers firmly back in place. The foreman continued, reading out the verdicts on the other charges: forgery, embezzlement, perjury, guilty, guilty, guilty. With each word, the weight in my chest lifted a little more. Justice. Finally. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment I wasn't even sure would come. Judge Thompson addressed Veronica directly. Miss Davis, in light of the jury's verdict, I am ordering the immediate seizure of all your assets. Furthermore, I am signing an order to restore ownership of the Parker residence to Mrs. Helen Parker. I swear, I almost fainted. That house, it wasn't just bricks and mortar, sweetie. It was my memories, my life, my security. And that woman, that viper, had tried to take it all away from me. As the judge spoke, two burly officers approached Veronica. Veronica Davis, you are under arrest, one of them said, his voice devoid of emotion. They cuffed her, and she finally cracked. The tears started to flow, her carefully applied makeup streaking down her face. It was a pathetic sight, but I felt no pity. She had brought this all on herself. They led her out of the courtroom, and the silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the room. People were clapping, cheering, even whistling. It was pandemonium. Jerry rushed over and gave me a hug. "You did it, Helen," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "You really did it." Michael and Carol came over too, their faces beaming. "Mom, I'm so proud of you," Michael said, squeezing my hand. "You're the strongest woman I know." And Carol just hugged me tight, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Helen. Thank you for everything." And then something unexpected happened. Tom, bless his heart, walked right up to Veronica's lawyer, that poor young fella who looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I quit." He turned to me, a newfound confidence shining in his eyes. "Mrs. Parker," he said, "I should have done this a long time ago. That woman was a monster. I'm sorry for all the trouble she caused you and your family." I smiled at him. "It's all right, Tom," I said. "You did the right thing. And you know what? You're a good egg." The relief washed over me like a warm bath. Carol would keep her job, my house was safe, and that awful woman was finally gonna face the consequences of her actions. As I sat there, sipping my Earl Grey, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. But you know, sweetie, even as the dust settled, a nagging thought kept creeping into my mind. Veronica wasn't just some rogue employee. She was high up in First Atlanta, privy to all sorts of information. If she was willing to engage in such blatant fraud, what else was going on? What other secrets were hidden in First Atlanta's accounts?